In this video, we will take you through one very important environmental and social disaster story, the destruction of Nauru, to understand why we should care for environment. Many times, we see that businesses don't care enough for the environmental preservation. It is always a secondary concern for them, with complete focus on economic gains from the business. Even if you are a private business working for profit, you must ensure that your activities are not harming environment. To understand reasons for it, let's take one example of Nauru Island. A combination of greed, colonial mismanagement, and gross incompetence has brought Nauru, once known as Pleasant Island, to the brink of collapse. What is Nauru? Nauru, officially the Republic of Nauru, and formerly known as Pleasant Island, is an island country and microstate in Oceania, in the Central Pacific. Its nearest neighbor is Banaba Island in Kiribati, 300 kilometers to the east. Nauru is the third smallest country in the world behind Vatican City and Monaco, making it the smallest republic. Additionally, its population of 10,670 is the world's second smallest, after Vatican City. As per 2018 World Development Indicators data, population of Nauru is 12,704. Lying between Australia and Hawaii, the island of Nauru is as far from Europe as any place on Earth. Around 8 November 1798, when a British ship called the Snow Hunter was passing en route to the China Seas, first time Western world recorded seeing this island. The ship's captain, Fern, named it Pleasant Island due to the warm winds, the island's green central plateau, the swaying palms, and the white sand beaches. For thousands of years, Nauruans had managed to live largely in balance with nature, isolated but self-sufficient. This was until now, real Pleasant Island, perfectly in ecological balance. At that time, Nauru was of minor strategic value for the colonial powers. In 1899, the geologist Albert Ellis inspected a rock-like object at the Pacific Islands Company, a trading and plantation firm, where he was working. That was considered as a piece of petrified wood from Nauru. But this did not seem right to Ellis, and he discovered that it was actually high-grade phosphate ore, a super fertilizer worth a potential fortune. Importance of phosphates. Phosphate increases the strike rate of seedlings, stimulates root development and flowering, and improves plant growth. British, French, and German chemists worked out a way to make phosphate fertilizer by using sulfuric acid on powdered phosphate rock. Sailing to Nauru in 1901, Ellis found that 80% of the entire island, the raised central plateau Nauruans call topside, was rich in phosphate of lime. Phosphate or guano, derived from an Inca word, passed into Spanish to denote the accumulated excrement from birds. That it is all from birds is a myth. Marine life trapped in the rise and fall of atolls also helped make guano. It became superphosphate or explosives, and the phosphate mining business grows. The Pacific Islands Company was renamed the Pacific Phosphate Company, and in 1905 a deal was made with Germany to mine Nauru. Over the next decade, Nauru exported hundreds of thousands of tons of phosphate. Nauruans had never built homes on topside, preferring the cooler shoreline, but topside was home to wild almond and planted pandanus trees, as well as flocks of birds. Miners cleared the scrub, ferns, and trees, scraped away the topsoil, and then dug the ore out of the pits and crevices of the ancient coral underneath. Little care was taken. At the start of World War I, Australia was ruling Nauru, after capturing it from Germany. It declared the island as an offshore mining site and began to focus on building mining infrastructure, mechanizing mining, and ramping up exports. By the early 1920s, Nauru was exporting some 200,000 metric tons of phosphate a year. 2 decades later, it was more than 4 times that. All mined phosphate was priced well below the world average. To subsidize farmers in Australia, New Zealand, and Great Britain, a triumvirate of nations organized as the British Phosphate Commissioners and given mandate by the League of Nations. In World War II, Japan invaded the Nauru in 1942. After the World War II, the United Nations put Nauru under a trusteeship of Australia, Britain, and New Zealand, with Australia once again administering the island. The Nauruan phosphate industry was almost immediately revived, and a few years later exports were higher than ever before. Over the next 2 decades, exports would rise steadily, with Australian and New Zealand farmers continuing to pay far below market prices until 1963. Till Nauru gained independence in 1968, more than 35 million metric tons of phosphate had left its shores. By 1968, 1/3 of Nauru had been strip mined, and Nauruans were living on a narrow ring around a plateau of jagged, spiky, razor-sharp coral and limestone pillars. After independence, the Republic of Nauru chose to cash in its remaining phosphate, increasing exports despite knowing that supplies would run out within a generation or two. Gross disregard for the natural limits had many repercussions for the Nauruans in future. We will see all these details and what learning we can get from this tragedy in part 2 of this story. Your support and motivation is also essential for us to move ahead. Do like, comment your views and subscribe to be in touch. Help your friends to realize the sustainability issues by sharing this video now. Thanks for your interest, and let us try to create an aware and sustainable world. Thank you.